There are plenty of really good single player games out there, and a lot of them are very underrated. It also can be very annoying when you see a game that looks very cool, but it is only exclusive to a specific platform. This is Chug from Keyboard Gaming, and today I will be doing a review on the game Crackdown 3. Before I go any farther, this game is a Microsoft exclusive, so you can only play this game on PC and Xbox. I will go over all aspects about this game, and I do have to say that this game is worth playing. The game is a little pricey, but if you have Xbox Game Pass, you can play the game completely free of charge. Crackdown 3 is the successor of Crackdown 2, originally released on Xbox 360. It took them 9 years to finally come out with a sequel, but ultimately, it was worth the wait. People might think that the second game is better, but we have never played the previous two, so we're going off of what we experienced in the third game. To be very blunt with you, I would not pay $30 for this game because of how short it is. The time to beat a game is a major factor when looking at a game for us, and it took me about 6.5 hours to beat. I didn't find all the collectibles and 100% the game, so you might last a bit longer if you do that sort of thing. Get Xbox Game Pass because you will also get access to a trove of other games to play once you beat it. I'm only going over a single player aspect of this game because there is a multiplayer mode which is pretty much unplayable because of the lag and the small number of people playing it. I didn't look up anything about the previous game's stories, but this game takes place 10 years after Crackdown 2. Basically, a massive terrorist organization attacks from an unknown location and cuts power to the entire planet. You are then tasked with going to find the source, but you get attacked by the terrorists while you are on your way. The agency finds and revives one of the agents and uses you to pretty much hunt down and eliminate the leaders of this organization. You eventually find a city named New Providence that happens to be the only city with electricity, and you are tasked with taking down the entire enemy organization. They are also harvesting a substance called Chimera that they use to suck up the world's electricity, and it is your job to destroy everything the enemies have built. It is far-fetched, but the story is actually pretty good. There are some pros and cons that I have with the combat in this game. The arsenal of weapons they give you is phenomenal. Any weapon you pick up can be used again later on. There are a ton of new gadgets to use like grenades and glide suits, and you can even change your agent to give you different bonuses like more experience for, let's say, explosive damage and such. I did find that I pretty much used 1 or 2 weapons throughout the whole game, but I didn't really have an issue with it since it's not a looter shooter like other games. There are also a great selection of enemies to defeat, and it makes for a great experience. Even though the game is short, I still had a blast with the combat. You can also pick stuff up and people to use them as weapons. It is definitely a game for combat. The one thing I'm not a fan of is the lock-on aiming. I tried to find a setting to turn it off, but right-clicking or aiming on the controller automatically locks you onto the nearest enemy. It's not that bad once you get used to it though. Mechanics are a key factor when starting a game, because if the mechanics suck, then you aren't going to make it through the whole thing. From the maneuvering to the car driving, this game actually feels pretty good. I would say the only thing I didn't really like as for mechanics is the glide suit gadget. It was a little hard to control most of the time. I really would only use it to get off a high building because there is fall damage. The vehicles work the same way as the weapons. You have a supercar that you can call at any time, and if you get into any car around the city, you get to keep it and summon it from any checkpoint. The game feels like a sandbox, but at the same time, a story-driven game. There is a mode that lets you run around the world freely without story aspects, if you are into that kind of thing. The driving, though, actually feels very polished and smooth, and the movement feels the same way. Microsoft definitely did a good job with this game, and let's hope Crackdown 4 is an improvement on the already improved system they built. Open world games give you a sense of freedom, and it is no different with this game. Crackdown 3 is entirely open world. You can go anywhere in the map that you want, but obviously certain areas like the endgame areas are blocked off for the remainder of the story. This is another reason why people compare this game to the Saints Row games, because of how similar they are to one another. If you like Saints Row or Just Cause, then I feel like you will like this game. There isn't really anything bad to say about the exploration, because I really enjoyed the progression of completing everything on the map. There are also a ton of collectibles to find if you are a completionist. The soundtrack is actually very good in this game. It's so different, but I really like it. Go look up the OST of Crackdown 3 on YouTube to see what I'm talking about, but it is like dubstep, rap, and the OST from Rogue Company thrown into one genre. A key factor is the soundtrack of the game, because if a game has a mediocre soundtrack, it kind of loses its focus, although there are a ton of games that don't really have a soundtrack but are still very good. This game definitely pulls you in with its unique soundtrack, and if you like good OSTs, then you might enjoy this one as well. If you like a mix of Borderlands and Saints Row graphics, then you will like the look of this game. It's actually pretty impressive what Microsoft put together in this game, because the reflections and textures are amazing. There was never a section that I was wondering why the textures were messed up. Every inch of the city is not flawless, but almost perfect, and the explosions look great as well. The performance of this game is not amazing, but if you are playing in single player, then your game should run pretty well no matter what kind of rig you have. If you have an Xbox, you can't really mess with any settings, so sorry about that. You can also uncap your frame rate on PC to get the max amount of frames as well. It's not the best performance, but it is definitely more playable. It surprisingly has a lot of replayability. Yes, you might be a person to play through the game once, but you can actually use the same agent in multiple worlds. It almost reminds me of Minecraft in a way. You can create an agent and then a world and take any agent into any of the worlds you've created. You can play the game through 3 or 4 times while using the one agent if you really wanted to. There's also a co-op mode, so if you and a friend can play through the campaign together, but I tried it with a friend and the server lag was pretty bad. We didn't get too far into the game together because it was pretty much unplayable. The game is best if you play by yourself, unless the co-op works for you. This game does have a lot of replayability. In conclusion, Crackdown 3 is a game that is worth playing, even if you only play it through once. I wouldn't pay full price for it. As I said before, get Xbox Game Pass because you can play a ton of games once you beat this one. You can get Game Pass on Xbox and PC, and it is totally worth the investment. There are also a ton of games on there like Doom Eternal, Ark Survival Evolved, and even Astroneer. Once you have it, you can play all these games for no additional cost. If you are interested, look into it because it is worth it. Also, play Crackdown 3, it is a great game.